layered it can feel, but always coming back to the basics and walking through, having a conversation, writing it down, filing it, suspensions, and then possibly termination if you get there. Okay, my last topic for you is retention, leadership and being an employer of choice. So there's some things I think that we blow by and kind of ignore that actually can lead a lot to retention and employer of choice types of workplaces. And most people want to be an employer of choice because if you've ever hired someone, you know it can be hard to find employees, right? Anyone had struggle finding employees before? It's tough. Or having to keep employees when you really want new ones because it's hard to find them. So retention, people will often say to me, can you talk about retention? Like, yes, and then really that's just talking about like leadership and HR practices in your business because that's what leads to retention as the result. Retention isn't really the topic. It's just kind of the result of good practices in HR and leadership. And if you were going to ask me today, like I have $1,000 to spend on HR, where should I spend it? I would tell you to take leadership training. Because I think that makes the direct biggest impact on things like retaining employees and dealing with situations in a productive way. It'll have more of an immediate impact than the other things in the HR list. So, strong leadership. How many of you have had a boss before? I know some of you may have just farmed forever. How many of you have had a boss before? Okay, think of the best boss you've ever had. What makes someone a good boss? In your experience. You guys don't like talking to me. What makes a good boss? A good listener. Thank you. I know you guys know the answer to this. What else?
A teacher.
A teacher. Someone who mentors you, gives you opportunity to learn. Exactly. What else?
They care about your home life.
They care about your home life? Yes, exactly. When something goes on in your life, it's not a problem, right? They're there for you for it. Yeah. What else?
Put trust in you.
Trust? Yes.
Organized.
They're organized, yeah. Working for...
Doesn't micromanage.
Doesn't micromanage you. Respect. All good ones. Yeah. Now, how many of you have worked for someone who you would call a bad boss? What makes them the worst?
The opposite of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, no respect, no trust. They don't care about your home life. They don't listen to you. Often the question, think of the worst boss you've ever had, what made them the worst? Often that question gets a reaction from people, like, ooh, it was a bad time. And if you've ever worked for someone who was hard to work for, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, that is not fun. It affects your home life, also, speaking of home life, in the opposite way. Like you have to convince yourself to go to work. You have the Sunday scaries. You come home upset. It affects your family, on and on. But being the best boss, being the kind of boss that gives people learning opportunities and growth and trust and all the things that it takes, isn't an easy thing to do, but it has the biggest, most impactful, immediate, direct impact on people wanting to work for you and your employer of choice. When you fly off the handle and scream at someone because they did something wrong, they have this teeter-totter. Or what will happen is your employees start up here. Committed employees are the kind of employees who are like, yeah, I care about this. I want to be here. I want to work here. What do people do when they get a new job typically? What do you think happens? If they tell their parents? Often people are kind of excited about a new job. Right? But then they go and they start working there, and they don't get answers to some simple questions, or they feel like they're annoying you because you're always too busy, and then you yell at them one day because something goes wrong, and then they kind of move their way down this teeter-totter, and they might go up and down a little bit depending what their experience is. But employees who are having consistent, challenging experiences with hard bosses are just sliding down here, and then they land in these compliant employees. These compliant employees who are Basically, a compliant employee is someone who's there to get a paycheck. And if you're on vacation, they're probably not doing much. Because they don't really want to. And we know from research and from studies and HR things in general that the biggest impactor of where an employee lands on how committed they are versus how compliant they are in their workplace is their boss. It's like a direct correlation. How much I like my job and who I work for. Okay. So what I mean by all of this, and the point of what I'm saying, and the point of even mentioning my granddad at the beginning of this whole thing, is that you, and anyone in this room who put their hand up when I said who has employees or manages people, you have an incredible opportunity, and you have the ability to impact people's lives in the positive way. So that when I say to a room of people, think of the best boss you ever had, they might think of you. They might even come visit you when you're 80 in a nursing home, 90, however long we're living. And they might talk about you to other people, and they'll probably tell their family that they're having a good experience. And what happens when that train starts rolling in the right direction is you have what's called a really good employer resume. It's quite literally just your reputation. Like, you market your business, right? Some of you want people to buy your things or like be involved, know what you're doing. You have an operation. Your employer resume is what you're like to work for. And you have one. You have one. If you have a business, you have an employer resume. And it's all based on experiences and situations from historically. How have you been as a boss to others? What are you like to work for? It's writing your employer resume all the time. And I just want to plant that seed, because next, when you're dealing with stuff and employees or things go sideways, being the kind of trust, all the things we listed about a great boss, trusting, listening, all of that, I want that to be you. Because I want you to be an employer of choice. And when someone says so-and-so's hiring, I want the buzz in your community to be, yeah, that's a great place to work. And that's from your leadership and how you run things. Okay? Which in its way circles around to what's your HR like, do you have the communication and fundamentals and all of that. It's all sort of behind it. But like I said, I would tell you to spend your $1,000 on leadership training first, because it makes the biggest impact. Okay. So things that we see that are important right now in the world, sorry, I have to ask you again where I'm at for time, how am I doing? Oh, nice, okay. So employer of choice, things that we see that are important to people right now, especially younger people, most importantly, flexibility and autonomy to get the job done. So if you can have some flexibility in your workplace, tell people what to do, go do it. Not a lot of micromanaging, they love that. Well-being, health insurance, paid time off, more than 2 weeks vacation. I'll tell you this, what right now is really important is that rarely are we hiring people with 2 weeks vacation as a start. That's the labor law minimum, but most people are offering 3 or 4 weeks vacation right from the get-go, because it's important to the workforce right now. Mental health days, paid mental health days, paid sick days, those are becoming the standard. So when we talk about competing for employees, part of that is what of those kinds of paid benefits do you have? So it's something to consider. If you want to be competitive and have that employer of choice reputation, what we're seeing out in the world right now is a lot of those paid benefits being a little bit more than employment standards minimums. Okay. Purpose and meaning to the work. This is easier in your industry. You guys have an important purpose. We're feeding the world. You can easily tie into that. People want to be doing that kind of work. If they're passionate about it, they want to be there. You mentioned training, teaching. Personal and professional growth is a big thing for employees. They want the opportunity to learn, to come to things like this, to be involved in getting better at their job and having opportunities to do so. And then they want strong leadership.